So I've said that consciousness is being that is specified as presence. And I've also alluded to William James's essay, Does Consciousness Exist? And now James is saying consciousness does not exist. I endorse both positions, and this is just the ontological difference. Being is no thing. Being is, in quotes, nothingness. The presence of things is not a thing among those present things. In my view, this is what is so confusing. Like the ontological difference. This is Heidegger's great thought. I mean, he does a lot of other great stuff, but I think that if you grasp the ontological difference, so much falls out of that, so much becomes easy. Now, grasping this difference, it's not easy. It's like a weird thing to point at. Like he talks about the forgetfulness of being, and there's quotes where he explicitly says, the forgetfulness of being is the forgetfulness of the ontological difference, the forgetfulness of the difference between being itself and things that merely are. Now, this is pretty obscure. I think being is somewhat elusive. So that's why I take the risk of specifying being as presence. Now, presence, this is a spatial metaphor, proximity, but it's also a temporal metaphor. So presence is something like here and now. And this is, the mine-ness of Dasein. And Dasein is just an ordinary German word for existence. So all along it could have been translated as existence or human existence. But there's also a German word, existence, and Heidegger uses that too. So, I can see that the translators, they had to make some difficult decisions. Now, my own approach to Heidegger is to think of him as a logical positivist, but like a profound in the sense of deep, and deep in the sense of logical positivist. Some of them were pretty great, like Moritz Schlick, A.J. Ayer. He was a young English man who came back after spending some time with them. So there's this guy, I think his name is Capio Banco. Anyway, I do think that the ontological difference is like the central great thought, and that throughout his career, even after the turn, he was still attacking the same realization, trying to find better words for it, and also tracing its history. Where did the Greeks sort of get a whiff of it? Of aletheia, unveiling, disclosure. Human existence is the kind of opening through which the world manifests. So this is why being can be made concrete. So in Being in Time, Heidegger says that the meaning of being is temporality. And temporality is something like primal time or existential time. It's not physics time or clock time. It's deeper. It's the kind of time, it's the historicalness of human existence that makes the invention of clocks possible, that makes us care about physics time in the first place. He talks about, the care structure of existence. So, in my view, if you are like me, I just know English. So if you study Heidegger, you get hammered with all these German terms, and then you have this capitalization of being. So there's this exoticness that might tempt people, and they might even prefer Heidegger to be understood as a kind of mystical thinker. And I'm not saying that that's bad, but for me, I think of him as a kind of realist in the informal sense, that he's digging into reality. And that's why I like to connect him to Feuerbach. Both of them thought about, perception, death, our relation to other people, the way that we share language in this profound way. So to return to my theme though, consciousness as being specified as presence, it would be no thing, no kind of stuff. So this is compatible with a denial of a certain conception of consciousness, right? Like, to me, Heidegger is a critic of dualism. So really, you can either attack consciousness as a stuff or attack some kind of objective reality substrate. That's another kind of magical stuff. So metaphysical realism would sort of project reality away from here and now and away from perception. So you have thinkers trying to tell you that perceptions are adaptive fictions, that they're internal icons. So you can kind of see, if you have a kind of weird, distant, objective reality, you also have to try to explain qualitative experience. So then you need to invent these internal icons, things like qualia, user interface icons. So this dualism, it is dualism. I mean, it's two substances, and to attack dualism, you can focus on one substance or the other. But I think the main thing that you do, and this would be part of dismantling or appropriating the hermeneutic situation, just make people aware of their dualism, allow them to see it from the outside, right? If everyone takes it for granted, then nobody ever, it's just the starting point. Everybody just starts there, and nobody even thinks to question it because it's obvious. But it's obvious in the same way that it was obvious once that the world was flat. We might be born into a naive era in philosophy. If we are born into an era that has forgotten the ontological difference, then people run around trying to figure out what consciousness is, and they think of it as a stuff. And yet I strongly believe that informally we know better. We informally we think of consciousness as the presence of the world for this or that person, right? The world itself. So your friend is conscious, right? That means the entire world sort of shines or manifests for them, but from their point of view. And likewise, you yourself are a sight of the world's manifestation, or a disclosure or an exposure of the world's manifestation. And if you look at perception, just like a logical positivist, secular, critical, even a little skeptical, perception is situated. I see the object with my eyes, you have to see it with your eyes. And likewise, belief is situated. So we all have a different sense of what is going on. So I think the correspondence theory of truth is like an inflation, a mystification of something far more familiar to us, namely that seeing is believing. And this is another thing in Heidegger, truth that comes from aesthesis or sense perception. And in his lecture course on Plato, on the essence of truth, he's tracking this down in Plato as well. Now, if seeing is believing, if what is most true is just the manifestation of the perceptual object, right? This manifestation is what language refers to. If you think of language as pointing, right, in a non-dualist way, instead of this weird pure meaning stuff that's trying to mirror this weird pure, objective substrate, things can clear up quite a bit, right? You don't have truth as the correspondence of mystical meaning stuff to mystical substrate stuff. You have, sounds and marks that function in the life world to call people's attention to that shared life world.